Telly and CNBC.com's Jeff Cox, along with Heritage Capital's Paul Schatz. Steve, I'm going to start with you in that very question. We've heard a lot of talk about maybe QE3 coming, but if we get a very good payroll number tomorrow, especially in the wake of today's ADP number, does that actually hurt the market because that means we're not going to get stimulus from the Fed?
Oh, yeah, I guess I can do that.
So, Michelle, I just want to warn you that you're asking me this question when I'm in mid-thought, and nothing may be more dangerous than me pronouncing a half-baked idea on television.
Shall we let you finish your thought?
Let me give you what it is right now, and then let Rick go up. Rick's going to pass out, okay?
All right.
So keep the camera on Rick here. What I think is that even despite a strong jobs report, the Federal Reserve may act next week. I don't think there's much in the way of this number that's going to dissuade the Fed from doing some form of additional easing. I think they believe they are too far behind the 8 ball that any single report would meet their standard of sustainable and substantial change. I mean, if you had a tick down in the unemployment rate and 200,000 jobs like perhaps suggested by ADP, I think the Fed still goes ahead next Thursday.
Is that steam I see coming out of Santelli's ears?
What do you think, Rick?
Hey, you know, wrong way Corrigan. To me, I wouldn't even weigh in on it. In my opinion, whether they do it or they don't, there's nothing I can do that's going to change that, no matter what traders think, no matter what people like Leon Cooperman think.
Yeah, but do you think it's a right thing or a wrong thing? You know, Rick, you know the spirit of the question. Is it right or wrong?
Let's separate out two things. One is the will they or won't they, and then the other one is the should they or shouldn't they. And I think, you know, we're in the, I feel like I'm more in the game of the trying to offer probabilities. I'm just throwing that on the table as a probability. The should they or shouldn't they is a different question for me.
So you don't think politics is going to enter into it, Steve? I still say, even though it's dangerous, because I think Ben's going to do whatever he thinks is right, whether it's right or not. But I think the political climate we live in is going to make him think twice, 3 times, 4 times before he actually pulls the trigger.
Paul Schatz, if Steve Leisman is right, and we're getting QE again either way, isn't it off to the races for the markets?
Off the races is pretty dramatic, but look, each QE has had a less of an impact. So I would argue that unless they're going to literally, which I don't think this is not the time yet, that's coming down the road, but unless they're prepared to throw everything and the kitchen sink into the markets, this is not the time to do it. This is still, for now, Draghi and Bernanke have done an amazing job at jawboning the markets. They've jawboned for weeks and months. So with each jawbone, the market goes a little bit higher. At some point, you got to put up or shut up. So if the Fed does unleash, QE3, I don't think it's going to be enough to pacify the markets. I think the markets, at that point, if they do, will be set up to have a pullback, not an extended rally. I think they have to, when they finally really print money, they're going to unleash a $1.5 to $2 trillion plan, but that's down the road. It's not now.
The risk All right, Jeff Cox, let's focus again on this jobs number. I mean, the ADP number was very good. The jobless claims number was very good. Are we setting ourselves up for a disappointment tomorrow? Or is it possible we get a good August number?
Yeah, I mean, the idea here is what shade of lipstick are we going to put on this pig? You know, the thing for me is I know one thing tomorrow. I can tell you this for certain, that I'm going to be covering this number as it develops, and if it comes out better than expected, I am going to get hate mail in my inbox like you would not believe, vitriol, because this is what happens. And I think I have actually finally quantified where all that vitriol is coming from. If you look at last month's numbers, the amount of unemployed or underemployed Americans is about 21 million people. I reported earlier this week that there are 46 million people on food stamps. So somewhere in there, there's a gap of 25 million people who need the government's help to buy the groceries. And this is why people go crazy when we put up a better than expected or unemployment is coming down. People go crazy over it. And I think that's the big political thing. I think it's the big Fed thing. There's that conception out there that the economy is struggling and that we need some kind of help.
Jeff, you're making
Steve,
my
what
point,
is the expected? Steve, what is the expected number?
The expected number is about 125.
Yeah, and Jeff's making my point is that a 200,000, call it 300,000. I mean, that's what I hope it is, and it may end up at 100,000. I have no insight into what that number is going to be, but even 300,000 would be a drop in the bucket to the numbers that Jeff was talking about. And I think the Federal Reserve really feels as if it needs to act for what is really a long-term and sustained employment problem we have in this country.
Not to mention we have an event going on in Charlotte tonight that's kind of important too, and President Obama is getting up to make his case for where the economy stands and where it's going, and I think all of this just kind of rolls into that. Going to be very interesting to see how he handles this issue.
Rick Santelli, briefly on the ECB move this morning. Did you guys get what you were looking for? I mean, it was about as expected, but this has been a pretty dramatic response by the markets today. What do you make of that?
You know, traders were a little shocked that, you know, even the Spanish stock market was up close to 5%. Traders aren't shorting stocks, and they're not shorting any of the challenged economies in Europe's capital or their paper. But they were surprised at the amount of horsepower that was performed by the marketplace, and they do think that they want to jump on board. So my guess is you're going to see more of the same as this kind of spiral of a microphone carries Europe much higher, but it's got a half-life. They need to really come back with, you know, now here's our growth plan after we stabilize rates, but I think that will all be blue if we hold our breath waiting for that.
All right,
people certainly covered shorts into this.
Yeah, that could be part of what's going on today, a little short covering rally as well. Thank you all. Paul Schatz, thanks for joining us today as well.
Today's move really highlights a warning